One of the greatest tests was going broke from 40 to 45. I needed something to hold on to.
Yes.
And I took "It Gets Greater Later" as my mantra, as my prayer, as my promise to myself.
Welcome back to America Who Hurt You, the pod where I sit down with America's most unapologetic culture makers to get us through this country's sorriest times. I am your host, Sarah Jones, and I'm on the road where I have been premiering my new live show of the same name, inspired by this podcast. A lot of us right now are in a New York state of mind. Go Knicks! So it is fitting that I got to sit down with one of my favorite New Yorkers, my dear friend and constant inspiration, Bevy Smith. You may know her from her viral TED Talk titled It Gets Greater Later, and she is also the best-selling author of multiple books, the host of Bevelations on SiriusXM, and you have to check out her latest show, In Bed with Bevy, which is as spicy as it sounds, but it's also all about breakthroughs, since Bevy has had so many of her own, from conquering fashion publishing for brands like Rolling Stone to her new role on the hit Amazon show Harlem. Bevy and I dug into her journey to greatness after 40, why gratitude is the best attitude, and how hopefully even America can still be greater later. Before we get into the episode, if this show helps you get through these intense times, we hope you'll subscribe on YouTube, which if you're not watching it, you really need to be over there. But wherever you're listening, make sure you share this with friends. Follow us at Yes, I'm Sarah Jones and America Who Hurt You on socials. All of that really supports the work we're doing, and it'll help us keep going in the future. But now it is time for the phenomenal Bevy Smith. The iconic Bevy Smith is here with us. We're going to get into all of it because, America Who Hurt You, as you know, Bevy, it started out as like we were like, America, girl, who hurt you? Why you like this?
Right.
And it was funny
Yeah,
until it wasn't.
until it wasn't.
I mean, first of all, it gets greater later is a philosophy that you have come to over time. Share that for people who don't know you, this kind of, heroine origin story.
Well, "It Gets Greater Later" really stemmed out of when I quit my job at Rolling Stone magazine, where I was the only Black person in management, the only woman on the sales team, and I was making really great money. And this is in 2005. And I was on track is what when I went to tell my boss, who was the publisher of Rolling Stone, that I was quitting my job to act, to write, to sing, to dance, to be a fire eater, to be a juggler, all these different things. And he said, "You're having a midlife crisis." And I'm Black from Harlem. We don't have time for midlife crisis. Also, I was only 38 years old, so it did not feel like a midlife crisis at all to me.
Mm-mm.
Because
Mm-mm.
we have longevity in my family, so that was just like a third it didn't feel like
You were
mid.
having a 33%
Yes.
awakening, not no
Right,
crisis.
exactly, 33% awakening,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but when I quit my job, to pursue this new life that I actually live now, it's not easy to do something like that. And
Mm.
you go through a lot of, tests. They say, without a test, you cannot have a testimony. Well, I certainly have all the tests, which is why I have such a great testimony. But
Yes.
one of the greatest tests was going broke from 40 to 45, which is a really hard time to be broke because, as you know, if you've done your good work in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, that's when you really start clocking all the dollars. That's when you start to coast. And so at that time, I was actually broke. And so I needed something to hold on to let me know the trouble don't last always. I'm giving y'all, if y'all are not Black and if y'all not American Black and you're not Southern Black, I'm giving you all the churchy Black things. You know, I had, I needed something to hold on to.
Yes.
And I took "It Gets Greater Later" as my mantra, as my prayer, as my promise to myself. And it really did shore me up. It shored me up. It allowed me to keep going in the face of such dire straits, in the face of adversity. And so that has kept me all this time, and I embody it, as you mentioned. And now it's a philosophy that I espouse all over the world, which I did with my TED Talk, which I do on my radio show, Bevelations, which I'm actually in the process of writing a book. It Gets Greater Later as well. So, yeah.
Yes. So I want to say for people who are just getting to know you, one of the things about Bevy that is so powerful for me is the confidence. And I think it can be easy to say, well, if my bank account, if it feels like my self-worth is connected to my net worth and I don't have nothing in the bank, how am I supposed to have that faith and belief in myself? Listening to you has helped me be like, I don't have time to complain. I'm not even from Harlem. I'm from Queens, but I will borrow that Harlem attitude. What would you say to people who, wherever they live, wherever they're listening to this from, maybe they are in a place that feels like a bottom or they feel broke, whether that's spiritually or some other kind of way? How did they get to their it gets greater later mantra? How did you come to that mantra?
Well, it's a gratitude space that I live in, right? And it all starts with gratitude. So even when I was broke, I still was abundant. And
Explain that. How do you do broke abundance?
yes, well, and I wrote a book, Revelations, and in it I have a chapter, which is one of my favorite chapters, broke but blissful. And the reason why I was broke but blissful is because I quit my job to write, to do TV, and I was actually doing all those things. I just wasn't being paid to do them as of yet, or I wasn't being paid well to do them as of yet. I could not sustain my lifestyle with doing the TV and writing as I was back then. But I felt like, wow, I asked for this. I prayed to be able to write for national magazines like Glamour Magazine and Essence and Interview and Paper. I actually wrote Rihanna's first ever cover story, and it was in Paper Magazine. But
Wow.
it was for the Good Girl Gone Bad CD, and she told me she wanted to be the Black Madonna. And dare I say, I think she might have surpassed Madonna at this point. I wrote that article and I think I was paid $550 for it, which is not enough to do much of anything if you're living in New York City, certainly. But just having that kind of opportunity gave me faith. Doing TV, one of my favorite stories is I was doing TV back in the day on VH1 and on E. There used to be all these clip shows, The Greatest Life, The Richest, and you
Back in
would
the 80s.
yeah, and you
Mhm.
would have pundits come on and talk about things. As you know, Sarah, those were not paid gigs. So I
Nope.
would go on them and I would do my thing, and they loved me, and they loved me so much so they would call me all the time. So I was on TV a lot. So one day I go to housing court to fight off eviction. And the woman says to me, aren't you that lady who was on TV? And I say, yes. And she said, what are you doing there? I said, the same thing you are, trying not to get evicted. But most people would have been so ashamed of that moment. You know what I thought, Sarah? I thought, wow, I'm not even on TV on a regular basis, but my presence on television when I am there makes such a statement that someone recognizes me. That means I'm on the right track. That's a win for me. So instead of being ashamed of that, I took it as encouragement to keep going. It's all in how we look at things. We have to shift our mindsets. And the first shift of mindsets should always be gratitude. Because every single person on this earth has something to be grateful for, no matter what your circumstances are. There's probably something really amazing in your current life that once upon a time you dreamed about. I know there is. No one lives a life that's just 100% misery. And if you think it is, then you're not looking at your life correctly. The practice of gratitude is the right attitude. That's it. That you gotta be able to look at your life and say, this may not be great and that may need improvement, but like what Steely said in Color Purple, but dear God, I'm here. I'm here. I may be black. I may even be ugly. But dear God, I'm here. That's what Steely said in The Color Purple. If you don't take it from me, take it from Alice Walker and from Whoopi Goldberg. Start from there. And then once you realize that you're grateful for this life that you have, this breath in your body, that you can even watch Sarah and Bevy talk, have girlfriend chat over coffee or matcha, whatever it is that Sarah's doing out there in LA.
Kombucha, girl.
See, I know you're doing something groovy. But you have something you can be grateful for. You have electricity that you're able to watch this on. You got a phone that's still turned on. You got some things to be grateful for. So let's take it from there. and then
Yeah.
let's go from there.
You are the embodiment of reinvention, reclamation. I was thinking about confidence. Girl, you need to give all of that to America because she needs a glow up real bad. So no pressure.
He really does. Well, I'm trying to give it to America, but America's not taking it on the way they should. I mean, I don't believe in doom scrolling, but the algorithm does feed you what you're most attracted to. So, I'm like following the perfect union. I'm following like the real owners of Ben and Jerry's. I'm following all these people that are activists, which always makes you more activated and agitated, right? But remember back in the day, an agitator was a good thing, right? To be agitated, to be an agitator was a good thing. But now it feels like agitator connects with anxiety and it's just like a whole thing, right?
Mm.
It's tough to navigate it all. And Sarah, I wonder if you deal with this. And I'm going to be really candid on this show, and I've never really said this in public, and I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to say it anyway. But it's difficult for those of us who make money in the mainstream spaces because we know that the machine is so very corrupt. I don't know about you, but I try to work with ethical companies.
I mean, it's not a perfect science, right?
It's not a perfect science. So I try to follow the old, do no harm to others kind of thing, right? But it is
Right.
tough. How do you deal with that?
You know what? I love this question. And I love because you're right, Bevy. I associate you with like the glamour, the fabulosity. I mean, and you do it with awareness, right? You're wakeful, you are an activist, you use your platform beautifully. Yes, and dinners with Bevy, like all these wonderful things you give us. I think we see you as like the kind of very shiny side of all of this. So for you to say, and the fact that you don't say this all the time, because I've never heard you say it before, there is a machine here. There is a delicate dance. And how do we do it? First of all, I'm just going to say, you do it on your tippy toes,
Yes, in my
tipping in
heels.
your Louboutins, your heels.
Yes.
And it's like, let's be real. We're in a context in 2026 where it is lucrative for a small number of companies who own all of our social media and all of our media, right? It's all been consolidated pretty much,
Validated, right?
right? And none of them owners look like you and me. Ain't
No,
nobody wake up this morning,
right.
need to press their edges. Nobody else.
No, nobody.
Right. And so I think it's again very both and. I'm always talking about that. Um, you are this kind of beacon of abundance, and other people can be too. And we have to be aware of the forces at play that every time I open up Instagram or TikTok, they have something called rage farming. They know that it makes the most money for ads and clickbait for us to be as riled up and, polarized as possible. I remember at one point, I feel like you had a moment going on social media where you were like, look, you could take in some. I think you were talking about in terms of like what you digest, like your diet. Can you say something about that?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I decided long ago, that I was not going to digest any of the gossip sites.
Interesting. Why
So,
those in particular? I'm curious.
because I also don't watch reality TV.
Interesting.
And as you know, my radio show is on Radio Andy Cohen of Bravo.
The
And
king.
the king of reality TV. And I do not watch reality TV. And I actually very rarely ever have someone on my radio show who is from reality TV. Because I believe that when you take things in, they shape your outlook. They shape how you go out into the world and interact with people. And I don't want a whole bunch of fussing and cursing and drink throwing in my psyche. So I say no to that. The gossip part of it is it kills so much time out of your day. It also sets the tone because most people, we hate to admit it, but most people pick up the phone as soon as you break up and see what's going on. So if your algorithm is trained for you to feed off of gossip sites, you're going to get the worst of the worst before you even have gotten out of bed. because I do so much into the kind of self-help, motivational speaking, that kind of thing. And then also, of course, like the kind of rage against the machine kind of content. I get a lot of positivity when I do pick up my phone first thing in the morning. But even still, I take the time to stop down. I do my prayer. I do a little meditation. And then honestly, I will pick up the phone. But I'm not getting the worst of the worst. So that's how I've trained myself and how I've set my life up.
Just imagine cutting out all of the media that reminds you of the worst in the world and instead starting your day with whatever makes you feel best. I'm going to sit with that screen free while we take a quick break. We are back with Bevy Smith, who is giving us a master class in confidence. Emphasis on the class, darling.
Okay, I have a theory now
Okay.
because part of your confidence, and I've noticed, we're in an era where people are like, I'm depressed, I'm miserable, and I'm low, please, I'm neurospicy as they come, as we know.
Yes.
So no shade to anybody's, emotional health journey. We love therapy. You're very vocal about doing your grief work and all of that kind of stuff. But I have heard you be clear about how important it is to balance your authentic truth and your authentic self with really dropping in so you can hear your purpose and your calling. And I feel like you've always been that way, but it's just been the industries around you or the pressures around you that have made it more difficult.
I think that for me, I actually wasn't that self-aware. I had all these gifts, but just wasn't aware of them. And that's most people. Sarah, you discovered your gifts very early on in your 20s. That doesn't happen to most people. I discovered my gifts in my 30s. But then I didn't even really know how to really seriously activate them. I would say not until I was in my 40s. So and it gets greater later, right? When did you really activate your gifts? Like you knew you had gifts early on, probably since you were a teen. When did you really kind of land solidly in your gifts and were able to activate them at a moment's notice?
Now, it's interesting you say that. For me, there wasn't a lot of self awareness because I grew up in New York. It was loud. I was so busy being that girl on the train, tuck your chains in and make sure you have your head on swivel. And I was very up armored. But there was a little spark in me that ever since I was a little girl, I could feel all of this, having to be too cool for school or whatever. That's not the real you. There's something inside that's pure love. That part of us is always there, even when it's dark, even when we're broke, even when we're lost or confused or whatever. So that part, Bevy, I think that's what you've always cultivated in yourself. You have a lot of joy and you're very generous with it. So I just want to remind everybody that you have that within you, no matter where you're from, no matter what your background, your childhood. If you're not there yet in your 30s or your 40s, you'll get there in your 50s. Yeah, thank you for that, Bevy.
I didn't even realize who I was at my core until I started doing that work and asking myself that tough question. And it takes a lot of time and introspective work to find out who you are at your core. And most people, specifically women, and I don't care what race you are, women will most likely say who they are at their core: wife, mother, I'm here to serve. It's always those things. I always tell people, that's not who you are at your core. Those are things that you perform. Those are things that you are. But who you are at your core is a solo piece of work. It's me being curious and empathetic and adventurous. That's who I am at my core. Me being a dutiful daughter or being, a TV host or whatever it is, that ain't got nothing to do with who I am at my core. Now, my core work it makes me all those things and allows me to do those things. But the core work is really the little brown Bevy, curious, empathetic, adventurous.
And beautiful and generous. And I have to say, I think, especially in a time like this, and I like to look at the parallels between who we are as individuals and who we are as a country right now. And, that spark of love, that who you really are, the core that you're talking about, I feel like America has some little, of like when I look at the civil rights movement, when I look at, women's rights, immigrant rights, all the people's movements that have made this country at its best, its best characteristics, we have been a beacon to the rest of the world in that way. But when you look at this situation we in right now, honey, I'm like, can we get to that spark? Can we get to that core of who we
We're
are?
getting to it. We're getting to it. We see it now in 2026. We see us moving towards that. We saw it in the primaries
Mm,
in 2025,
mm,
right?
yeah,
We
yeah.
saw it, we saw those local elections. We're seeing these cities, these states taking back, or bringing back kindness, civility.
Our core of who we really know we want to be. Because you're saying it, Bevy, the majority of people want the same things. We have the same values. It's only when you distort, you lie, you cheat.
And it also comes from this: we worship the dollar.
Ooh, say that.
We worship the dollar, and that's a really big issue. So I'm in a space, and it's difficult for me to really talk about this because I am at an age where I understand that less is more. But I don't know that the 30-year-old Bevy understood that, or the 35-year-old Beverly. But by the time I was 40, I was starting to get the memo because I had less, but I was really very happy, even though I was broke. So I was starting to understand. So I guess I've been in this understanding of less is more, and the stuff doesn't matter space for about 20 years. I'll be 60 in November. And
I
I'm
want your entire routine. I want the vitamins. I want the skincare. I want everything.
it's
You're like,
gone. It's gone. No, but it's one of those things. I also really do believe that it's the joy that I have in my heart, and it radiates from inside to out. That's what it is, real talk. I'm also not a stressed kind of gal. Stress will eat you up. Jealousy will eat you up. We think about the people from this current administration and how bad they look. I don't know if you remember the Vanity Fair articles that came out in December of last year, and how distorted those folks looked. It was macabre. It
ooh,
was really quite scary.
it
But
was
that's a
giving
lot of hate.
sinners. It
It's
was.
giving sinners. But that's a lot of hate in your spirit. That's a
Mm,
lot of jealousy.
mm,
That's a lot of not caring about anyone other than yourself. And
yes.
that ages you.
Mm,
It
mm,
ages you.
mm, mm,
That's like love and caring for others and being empathetic gives you more life.
yes. Yes.
Let's
Yes.
look lively.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like Dewey. I'm looking at you, the
You
glow.
doing it, I'm doing it. We
And
doing what to do.
before we go reinvent, skincare and joy care,
Right.
and spirit care all in one.
Mhm.
How, Bevy, can you be, kind of really politically aware and use your platform and your gifts the way you do, but also, I've talked about this with Stacey London is on this pod. We were talking about
Oh,
style.
she's fun.
I love her. She loves you. But like there can be times when people say, "Oh, style, that's so frivolous." People, and it's true, there's a lot going on. People can't get, their most basic needs met. But I believe, especially for us as women and definitely as Black women, if you look at our lineage, if you look back to enslaved Africans who got their freedom and whatever they had access to, they could make a burlap sack look good, honey. And
Yes.
I just feel like that's almost a part of our gift to America
It's our cultural DNA. Our cultural DNA. When I used to be at Vod magazine, I was the fashion and beauty advertising director, and I would have to go over to Milan and Paris to talk to the big European fashion brands, the luxury brands, about why we were viable consumers. And I would take over books from the great Harlem Renaissance photographer James Van Der Zee.
Yes.
And I would also talk to them about our lineage, about how as soon as we entered into Reconstruction, there was a rumor that was spread by the KKK that we were dirty, we were unkept, we smelled bad,
Mm.
which is why to this day we over-index in fragrance
Mm,
and personal care products.
mm,
Don't even talk about the clothes. I'm just talking about the smell goods. I'm talking about the fact that we're always moisturized because they told us we were ashy and dirty and all of that. And we said, no, ma'am. So we had to, that was a survival mechanism. Us showing up looking good. The civil rights movement, those people protested in suits and hard bottom shoes and brim hats, fedoras. Come on now. You think that was comfortable? You think they didn't want to all wear overalls and a tennis shoe? Of course they did. But they knew that the way they presented themselves, which then to bring us into respectability politics, which we don't have enough time for that. But it is a part of our cultural DNA to take great pride in how we look and how we present. That's why there's also the backlash around it too, within even our own community. And I respect the people that are like, no, I will not put on a suit. I will not put on this dress. I will not try to conform to what they want me to be. I respect that as well. I grew up being very fussy because my mama was fussy. So it is what it is. But I respect the other side of the coin.
I love that. And I think, your work and spirit embodied that inclusive attitude of like, the joy, the grace, the compassion. That takes us out of the space of judgment, of being keyboard warriors, always trying to tear somebody down. Oh, she's too this or she's glamorous. How about all we need to do is keep putting our liberatory frameworks forward, whether that looks like a silky, this is a blowout. Half the time I wake up, I'm like, my hair's not curly. I look like a sellout. It's like, Sarah, we ain't got time for that.
Enjoy all sides of Sarah.
Yes.
That is something that I've been talking about on online, my In Bed with Bevy series, which is my like talk show where I'm like laying in bed and I'm unbridled and I just talk about topics and things and interview folks and In Bed with Bevy.
I love it. I'm so obsessed. And what's so beautiful about it too is
to be in bed with me.
I'm coming to get in bed, girl. And it's funny. I had David Allen Greer on, and you know how funny he is, and he has a long history. 45 years in the business. And we were joking about this. I don't even know if it made it into the episode, but he said, now we're in this time when everybody's beautiful. Is that real? Like, if everybody's beautiful, don't that mean nobody's beautiful? And because he's funny, he made it funny. But I do think we are in a new time of it's all beautiful. You are gorgeous and glam. And if you listening to this but not watching, you are definitely missing out. So
well, I could be y'all, but I know I didn't have my glam going. So, but y'all have seen me on the computer and y'all be like, oh, she is beautiful and glam. But, you're right, though. You're right. Like what David Allen Greer said, I agree with that. If everyone's beautiful, is anyone really beautiful? And that's a healthy way to look at it, too. Because I feel like we need to start getting away from seeing beauty just as physical. The true beauty is spirit, which is why you can look at someone who's an elder, who's like 100 years old, that might look like a little shriveled apple, but you see the beauty in them. You see the light in their eyes. You see that beautiful smile, and you feel their energy. And you're like, that woman is beautiful, or that man is beautiful. They may not look beautiful from the exterior, but you get all this energy, and that's the truest beauty, right?
Yes, yes. And it can't be purchased. And I think that's another question that I like to ask, my guests. You make it so clear about there can be more joy where there's less money. And I know when people don't have anything, that's a whole other story. We need to get by in this society. But I think there's something, maybe it's someone talks about a statistic that once you get above, a certain, like you need in most cities, 6 figures, barely get missed is rough.
Yeah.
But once you hit a certain amount of money, after that, all these millions and billions, not only are they not making people happier, they're making them crazier and more miserable. Is that your experience with being around wealthy? Yeah, tell me.
Well, Sarah, I'm going to put it on you. Think about it. Think about the year that you made the most money you've ever made. Remember that year that you had where you could not believe how much money was just sitting in your bank account? Remember the checks that you were receiving? I don't know if you ever received a regular check where they had to deposit it every 2 weeks or something. I remember I did a show that I actually hated,
Mm.
and every 2 weeks, the money that would come into my account, and I was a misery child,
Ooh.
and I hated that show so much,
Mm, mm, mm.
and I was like, "Ooh, I hate this show," and the money was not enough. The money was good, but the money was not enough to make up for the misery.
Mm,
Yeah, it's when I quit my job at 38, I was gonna buy a Harlem Brownstone,
mm,
and I had to make a decision. Do I quit and bet on myself,
mm.
or do I buy this amazing brownstone, which will be money in the bank, legacy, all the things, right?
Yeah.
These are things, Sarah, as you know, and as they know, the minute they get you locked into a 30-year mortgage, the minute that you have a huge responsibility, which is also why I'll tell you another story. But the minute you have these huge bills that you feel like you have to
Yep.
meet, that's when they got you.
Yeah.
And that's why you see so many people doing so many things that they really don't want to do, but they do it for the money
Mm,
because they got us. Gotcha.
mm.
When I was at Rolling Stone magazine, a man had his third child, and when he came back from being with his wife, the boss said, "Oh, now we got you. You got your third kid. You're not going anywhere."
Wow.
That's some crazy stuff to say to somebody.
That
But that's also why when you think about even corporate America from back in the day, from like even the 1950s, they wanted you to be married and they
Mhm.
wanted you to have children. Why do you think that is? Because you can be put under their control. You're under their thumb. If you have so much of overhead,
Mm,
you can't afford to go anywhere.
mm.
Wait, can we just take that in for a second? Like, what if the American dream of a mortgage and a picket fence isn't a goal to achieve, but a trap to escape? I'm gonna sit and think about my life choices for a second. We'll be right back. We are back with the one and only Bevy Smith and her vision, or should I say vision board, for the reclamation of America.
I think part of what we're trying to reclaim, this is the year of the 250th anniversary of the founding of America, right? The declaration of, they said independence, but I think we cleared that somewhere left somewhere along the way. So I think we are redefining what American is. What is it to you? What do you see for 2026 and beyond, regardless of who's in the White House?
I am I'm very laser focused on community, building community. I have a little thing on Instagram, on the Instagram channel called It Gets Greater Later. And every morning I leave a little morsel of a word. I lay up in that bed and then whatever comes in my mind, I record it. Sometimes I record it when I'm in the bathtub. You hear the echo and the water splashing, whatever it is. But it's just something that's on my mind and it's a lovely little community. Ain't a lot of people. It's about 4,000 people. Little community. But every morning we come together and I have a good solid word for you. Community is real. That's why Life with Vision is an in-person event. It's not online because we need to start doing more touching, hugging, connecting for real.
Mm, I love that.
I'm all about, I believe that if we can really get back to building community, it's going to be really powerful, which also leads me to the fact that I'm doing less big box shopping and I'm doing more community shopping. So I'm going to my hardware store to get a mixer. I need an electric cord. I go to the hardware store. I go there in person. It doesn't come to me in like 4 hours like some of the other services. I'm not going to get it fast. It's okay. Okay. I don't, there are very few things that we actually need next day delivery on. Very few things. So if we decide to be a little bit inconvenienced, which once upon a time it wasn't inconvenient, if we decide that we can stomach being a little inconvenienced, we can rebuild community.
Mm.
Because we cannot build community behind these screens. It's never going to happen. So that's because when you do your live shows, you see how people are so happy to see you and be with you?
Yes, yes, yes.
And
And
it's
you
things
too.
that you're saying on this podcast, but they feel your energy in the room. We do the best we can behind these screens.
Yes.
But the real work, the magical work happens when we're with each other in community. So
Mm.
that's what my hope is for 2026, that we continue along this path of rebuilding community. It's imperative.
I love that. And I think what you're talking about, it's neuroscience, right? It's neuroscience, it's biology. We co-regulate heartbeats when we're sharing space with each other, and it literally helps our health. I want to ask you, do you feel the sense that no matter what we see, because it's rough out here in these, 24-hour news cycle streets, and they're
Yeah.
doing that on purpose, right? They're
Yeah, but
flooding
you
us
also
on purpose.
shouldn't be taking that in. You don't have to do that.
What do you recommend to people who say, but I have to stay informed? What do
You
you,
do. We don't have to stay informed. I think we should stay informed. I think we should watch news, read news, but I also think we should not just watch and read news from one specific outlet.
mm-hmm,
We
mm-hmm.
certainly should not be getting all of our news from America. Woo! Fox, CNN, nope.
Nope.
You better
Nope.
look at Al Jazeera. You
Mhm.
better look at the BBC. You better look at CNN International. You know what I mean?
Yes, I
So
do.
that you can really be informed. You want to be informed? Being informed is not just watching American news. That's not the way you're never going to be informed. You're going to be indoctrinated. Also, support your local newspapers if they're good in quality.
Right. Check who owns them. Check who owns them. And if they in the current administration, maybe don't read that stuff. But
You know,
yes.
I unsubscribed from the Washington Post.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was a Washington Post reader, but I'm a New Yorker. But that just goes to show I had to unsubscribe from the Wall Street Journal.
Listen, let me say this too. We have a finite amount of time in the day. And Bevy, I forget that. Because they designed the algorithm to suck your brain right through your ear. You don't even know.
You don't even know.
We need a recipe for how do you make it?
Yeah, I think the morning thing is really important. I have my little morning rituals. I journal every single morning. Sometimes I journal in the tub and I paint my emotions.
I
Yeah.
love this. Now, wait a minute. With actual paints, I'm like, is there tub water involved? What's happening, Bevy?
So there's paint. There's lots of paint. There's you can buy the Crayola paints, or you can buy real paint that you have to squeeze onto a little,
Palette.
palette and
Uh-huh.
mix the colors. I have both. Sometimes when I go on vacation, I just take my little Crayola paints, but I buy really good brushes to use for my Crayola paints, and I literally will write my feelings, and then I will paint my feelings in the same journal.
Okay. Everybody's heard of paint and sip, where you go get your wine and you do paint and bathe. Paint in the tub is next level.
Yeah, but think about it, how calming that is. First of all, you guys know when you write, when you put the pen to the paper, do not do an online journal. First of all, they can track all that stuff.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do an online journal. Write, pen, paper. It changes your biology. First of all, once you get into it, you start drifting away. And the worries and the woes of what's going on just kind of float away. So, of course, The Artist's Way. I got that from The Artist's Way, morning pages. So I journal every day. It calms me down. It soothes me. And then if I paint on top of that, when I get out that tub, baby, I'm just so zen. I'm so wrinkled and I'm so zen. And it's really magical how your brain shifts, how your mood shifts and it elevates. And not everyone has time to take a bath in the morning. I do understand that is a luxury. I'm very clear on how, I have a lot of luxury going on. Okay, so that's that. Obviously, we already know you got to move your body. They always say touch grass.
Yes.
Go outside. I have a little balcony, so I'm blessed. Sometimes I cannot go outside, but I can go on that little balcony.
Mm,
I
mm,
just stand on my balcony and just give thanks and feel the air on my skin.
mm. So let me ask you this too. The movement, and I know, there are folks with all kinds of movement issues. I have people in my family that have mobility issues. I have read about this, and maybe you know about it too, that just the visualization, if you are immobilized, if you are injured for some reason or whatever, the visualization of a place in nature that you love, or how do
Yes,
have you used, I feel like you would be a visualization person as well.
definitely a creative visualization kind of gal. I visualize this life that I'm leading right now. I
Mm.
visualize having freedom. My biggest thing before I quit my job was that I just wanted to be one of those people that sat around the coffee shop in the middle of the day. And that's basically what we're doing right now. It's the middle of
Girl,
the day. We're in a coffee shop right now having a conversation. Just two girlfriends. That's freedom. That is what I wanted.
what does visualization look like for you? Like, how do you explain that to people?
Well, the way I explain it is, I think that's the reason why I write. That the journal is my visualization tool. For some people, it's a vision board. I used to do vision boards every year. I feel like I'm a master manifester. That I no longer need a vision board. I don't need to do that. But they're very, very helpful, especially if you're on the beginning stages of trying to visualize your life. It's wonderful to see your life all mapped out on a cardboard, poster board. If you need help on visualize, that is a great way to start. And I will say, at the center of your vision board, put your heart, your biggest, deepest heart desires, and everything else should spring out from there. So the heart, for my heart, it was freedom. So I'm gonna have freedom to love, freedom to rock, frolic, play, freedom to try any old thing that I've ever wanted to try career wise, freedom to, and you just do that. But your thing might not be freedom. That was just my love center. But whatever the center of your spirit, of your heart, what you truly want, put that right smack dab in the middle of the vision board and let everything spring out from there.
Can I tell you that just landed for me? Like it hit different. And I've done vision boards, and I know people who, when I was doing my vision boards, I had some people in my life who were like, that's not gonna work. That's so stupid. Blah, blah, blah. And I have that voice, right?
And then, like, maybe when you're doing the vision board, it does feel silly. It does feel useless. It feels like this is not going to work, but just do it anyway.
Everything you're saying about what's at the heart, what's at the core, it goes back to, how you teach people to find who they truly are within. And we were kind of playing around with the idea of who is America truly within. If you could help America build the vision board that
Mhm.
starts with who we really are, and yes, there's going to be, things that aren't quite right,
Yeah. Yeah.
but what do you see as our vision board? Where could we go if Bevy
The
were
heart,
president?
the heart of America's vision board, I think, would be the heart of mine, which is freedom.
Mm,
Freedom. And then it's freedom of speech. I don't care. I don't want us to bear arms, but the freedom of speech, the freedom to love who we want to love, freedom to do work that we're proud of, that that feeds us, not just monetarily, but spiritually.
mm,
The freedom to welcome all into our family.
mm.
Need freedom to be able to do that, you know?
Yeah.
So that's where I think the vision board of America, it starts at the heart, would be freedom and the love. What's so crazy about it is I think 1776
Right.
wrote this thing, and I think it was like some stuff in there that talked about this kind of thing. You know what I mean?
It was a declaration of something or other.
Yeah. Well, that's something.
You
So
know
they
what?
already did it. Back then, it wasn't including everyone, though.
Right.
So then there were some amendments that were made to right some wrongs. Now, those are being snatched back like a bald-headed girl with a wig on.
Woo, child.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
America will hurt you indeed.
America, who hurt you? And more importantly, who's healing you? And we know who it is. It's Bevy Smith. I'm so glad to have you, my love.
I love
You
you.
you are just a whole movement, and I'm gonna make sure that I, along with everybody else, following you, that we really tap into these gifts. You are such a powerful resource for 2026 and beyond, and we're so grateful for you.
I'm so grateful to you too. I love you so much, and I'm so glad we finally got a chance to do this.